Well, today we welcome Shadows on Mercury to the Noble Shire of Progressive Discussion. Welcome to ProgressiveRockCentral.com. Welcome Charlie Brumwald and Scott Owens from the band. And they're going to be talking about, we're going to have some questions talking about their new EP, Worlds Apart, which it released back on February 2nd of this year, and it's a fantastic album. You definitely should get out there and listen to it. These guys are great. And tell us a little bit about the genesis of the band and how you came up with the name Shadows on Mercury.
Yeah, shall I take that one?
So,
Um, well, basically, it was during the pandemic lockdown. Um, Obviously, we couldn't meet each other and do our main project, Ghost of the Machine. So at the time, I just started writing some songs at home, and I played a little bit of keyboards. Obviously, my main instrument's guitar. Um, I wrote the songs as best as I could. And then I asked a neighbour actually, who I was in a band with a while ago, Tim Lofthouse, and Tim said, "Oh, I could add some keyboards onto those tracks." I thought, brilliant. So Tim added the keyboards, and then obviously I had in mind putting some vocals on. I'm not a singer, and all I could hear was Charlie's voice really on the tracks.
You got a great
So
voice, one of the best in Prague
indeed.
in England for sure.
That's
oh,
it.
thank you.
So I couldn't really hear anybody else on the track, so I thought I'll contact Charlie and see what he says.
And the answer was a straight up yes. I heard some of the material that Scotty had been working on. But we've obviously been working together for a while anyway with Ghost of the Machine, so we know we've got a little bit of chemistry with what each other likes, what each other writes. And it just kind of flowed from there, really. You kept sending through tracks as they reached completion with the guitars, bass, program drums, and awesome keyboards from Tim. And it was just very easy to sort of find some lyrical themes that interested me and write some melodies over these tracks. And I'm really pleased with the finished results here.
Excellent. All right. When I first heard the title of the album, I was like, "Oh my god!" One of my favorite Saga. Have you guys? You guys both know who Saga is
I
from
do, yeah.
the late '70s and '80s. Their biggest album, I think, as far as selling, was Worlds Apart, and I was like, "Oh god, I hope they throw a couple of those tunes on there." This is nothing like that. Not that it isn't as good. It's very good. But have you guys heard of that album then, and have you heard the whole album? I mean, growing up in the '80s, that thing was on MTV all the time. They had videos from that album. It was that popular.
Yeah.
I
Oh, sorry, Charlie, go on.
can say I didn't grow up in the 80s, but Mark Hagan from Ghost of the Machine is quite a big Saga fan, so that's what prompted me to check them out. I think they're absolutely great, and they've just been on tour last month, haven't they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. After they said they weren't going to, they're back, and that's great. Yeah, I think I have most of their discography, if not the whole thing, but definitely a fan. But go ahead, Scotty. What were you going to say?
No, I was Charlie stole my line, really. I was just going to say that Mark is a big Saga fan, Mark from Ghost of the Machine, and yeah, I've just kind of started getting into the songs. Are they from sort of are they Canadian now?
Canadian, yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. And is it two brothers? Is it two brothers?
There's two brothers in it. Now for some reason I can't remember the lead singer's name. But he's incredible. But well, the whole band is. But I for me, his voice just really set them apart from all the other prog bands of that era. And
I think the guitarist is fantastic. Is it?
Yeah.
I think it's Ian Crichton, is it?
yeah, that's it. Yep.
His
And I
guitar.
think he has a brother in the band, or had a brother in the band. I don't know if they're all still, same band.
Yeah, brilliant.
But anyway, great. So what were you trying to reach or create with Worlds Apart? How is yours? Why choose that name? What is it that's Worlds Apart? Because I do think you are, but go ahead.
So one of the key themes of this EP is communication failure, and it's a big part of modern society, especially with how we communicate online. You see Twitter, well, X, what was Twitter, and the way that people argue at cross purposes. No one's really listening to one another. They're saying things on opposite sides of the spectrum, but they're just completely missing each other's points.
Do you have that in England? Because here
Oh yeah,
we have a separate country. At times it feels like that.
yeah. I mean, I didn't want to get too bogged down in any
Politics.
direct
Yeah,
political
no.
discourse. I don't want to call out one single side or the other, but I did want to address that when we are having these conversations with one another online, especially online, if you miss the point, if you miss what each other's saying, you're going to keep drifting further apart.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the crux of what Worlds Apart really means. We're just getting further and further away from one another, trapped in kind of a cycle of bitterness and anger, really. And that's certainly the lyrical content of the title track. And maybe the most important point I wanted to make with the lyrics. But the other songs on the album likewise kind of address that contemporary concern of how are we communicating, who are we letting control the narratives. So you've got calculate control, where have you ever been scrolling through social media and an advert comes up for something that you're like, how did it know that that's something that would interest me?
Oh,
So
yes.
I've
That
not
happens.
said anything.
Yeah. No,
I've
that
not
happens
written
all the
it
time.
down.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
frightening that these platforms can predict our wants and needs,
Yeah.
and which one comes first, the desire or the algorithm? I don't know where it begins anymore. So that's calculate control. And another song that I'm particularly fond of on the album, the EP, King of Broken Things. I'm not going to name any names with this, but
Sure.
Every now and then throughout history, you get these figures who come along and speak to the people who felt ignored and disenfranchised and disenchanted for so long. And this person comes along and says, I understand, I know what it is you want. And we put our trust in that person. But I will say, be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful who you give that power
Well,
to.
I'm not afraid to say it over here. He's running for president. And a lot of us are very nervous about that. Yeah. Yeah. What are some of your influences? Because I don't know if I talked to you about that last time, Charlie, but uh, like I say, he's got a fantastic voice that would fit into just about any kind of progressive rock or rock for that matter. I don't just limit them to progressive rock, but what are both of you? But what are some of your favorite influences or your favorite bands? Because I'm just trying to see where that sound comes from because it's awesome.
Let you go first, Scotty.
All right, cheers. Well, I mean, I sort of grew up. Well, I started getting into music sort of early 80s, really. So for me, my sort of inspirations and bands at the time were all the hair rock from Los Angeles at the time. So your Poisons, your Rats, your Motley Crues, all those. That's where I first got into music. And then I started sort of creeping across to the prog side through bands like Queensryche. I noticed you've got the Empire album on your wall at the back there. So I started drifting across with bands like that. And then I started getting into well, in fact, I was watching a film on the TV once, and I think I fallen asleep, and I woke up at midnight thinking, "What's going on?" And just starting on the BBC was the Marillion live at De Montfort Hall in Leicester, and I thought, "What is this?" And that was the
Yeah.
first time I'd heard him. I think it was the first tour Steve Hogarth had done, and that just blew my mind, and that just opened a whole new avenue of music for me. So putting it into a nutshell, my whole background really is from more of a rock side, I would say, than the prog side. But there's definitely elements and blends of both. And as for listening to music now, I've just sort of discovered the band Lion Shepherd. I don't know if you've heard of them, Polish band. They're yeah, they're sort of moving me at the moment with some of their music. So yeah, so that's my background really.
For me, Marillion but see, I was Fish era, and when I was I guess I haven't disguised the fact that Genesis, it's all over the back wall here, but Genesis is my favorite band, they and Led Zeppelin. And yeah, and so I was dying when Peter Gabriel left. I was like, oh my god. And Phil did a good job for 3 or 4 albums. He really did. And then he took him in the direction I didn't want to go anymore. But I was in search of that Peter Gabriel sound, and when I heard Fish, I was like, holy moly! No one's Peter Gabriel. That's never going to happen. But he was the closest thing. And then went to a record store. I think I've told this story before, but not to you guys. Walked into a record store, was looking around, happened to look at the cover of one of IQ's albums, and Peter, I think his name is Peter also, right?
Peter Nichols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His he had like facial stuff that looked like Peter Gabriel, and I bought the album without hearing a note. And when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, here you go, these two. So that carried me through the 80s. And I don't know if you guys have heard the Watch from Italy. I happened to be walking out on the beach yesterday. This guy came walking at me with a Peter Gabriel, the third album,
Melt.
huh?
The
Melt.
third solo album,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's it. And he had that shirt on, and I started talking with him and told him about the Watch. Never heard of him, but yeah, if you ever get a chance, he's about the closest thing these days to Peter Gabriel, the lead singer. He's a real good guy. I've interviewed them and reviewed a lot of their music, but yeah, it's hard to find that anymore. That and I'd say Charlie at times reminds me a little of that Phil Collins era, not the Gabriel era, but the Phil Collins era, which is thank you for that. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I try not to talk during these things, but when it's something like this where it's really interesting, I can't help myself. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's a passion, isn't it? And Genesis is my favorite band too. I was 4 years old when I remember listening to Genesis on tape in my older brother's bedroom.
What
And
was the first album? Or do you
that
remember?
I heard? I don't really know. I was probably too young to
Put all that
memorize
together.
it in a particular order, but I remember hearing the introduction to the Fountain of Salmacis,
Oh, okay.
and being
So is
absolutely
Gabriel.
blown away.
Gabriel.
It was a mix of everything. Because I remember hearing Domino as well, which is a bit later than the Genesis you like. It's from Invisible Touch, which I actually think is a great
I think it's a good album.
album.
I think that might be the last one, if I remember, but yeah.
Yeah,
I love
I mean,
Duke. I love
Duke's
uh,
great.
there's like three or and then there were three, uh, and of course Trick of the Tail and Wind and Wuthering. But after that, and after I think Invisible Touch was the last one, and then he got into all that other stuff. That anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. But I was hearing a real mix from all the eras, and my brother had a Peter Gabriel live Secret World tour on video as well, and I remember watching that and mind blown. So
Yeah, his solo
both
stuff is good, is wonderful too.
super stuff. Both were both Collins and Gabriel were a huge fixture of my childhood, and it was probably not until my 20s that I started really enjoying Marillion and Rush. But I'm glad I did.
Oh yeah, Rush.
In my teens, I was listening more to bands like Journey, Toto, TNT, Westworld, and a little bit of Iron Maiden as well. So expanding my horizons in that time.
All right. Let's see. Uh, let's just talk briefly about tours, or I think you've mentioned a few on Facebook, but um, what are your plans for this year as far as touring or touring this EP?
Well, we have no plans to tour the EP actually. This was very much a studio project. In terms of playing live, Scotty and I play with Ghost of the Machine, and we've just done a few live dates through February and March, and we have a few more lined up for later in the year. A couple of decent festivals. We're playing with the Emerald Dawn, if you're familiar with them.
Yes, yeah.
Emerald
I
Dawn.
was just you jumped ahead of my conversation. I was going to ask you, are you doing any partnerships or meeting up with some other bands?
Yeah, there's a lot of great new progressive rock bands, certainly on the UK circuit and even on the US circuit as well. I see bands like LeBate Scarp putting out great albums as well.
All
um,
right.
but yeah, we're not adding much to our live calendar because our priority is the second Ghost of the Machine album. We want to be recording that quite soon, and then we'll be thinking about how we go out and promote that. Once that's in the can, then we might be thinking about how we follow up Shadows on Mercury.
Yep. Do you I think you're linked with Anne, and or you did a solo performance with Anne from Nine Skies, right?
I
Or the tribute album. I can't remember which.
I wasn't on the tribute album, but I
Yeah.
was on the Nine Skies Lightmaker album on one of the tracks there. Um,
Yeah.
there
Any
was
chance of you
also,
guys getting together, either in Europe or the UK?
I don't know at the moment. There was a tour scheduled for Nine Skies that was meant to take place in the UK during March, but for logistical reasons, it wasn't able to go ahead.
That's a
So
shame.
watch this space.
Yeah. All right. Um, so let's come back to the second that Ghost album. Is that going to be? You think you'll make it this year or 25?
We're not putting a date on it just yet.
Okay.
It's quite far along in terms of the songwriting, but we're having a few conversations with how we're going to release it. We are fine tuning the material, and basically it's a case of we don't want to rush it. It's ready when it's ready.
No, yeah, no reason to. All right, and Scotty, are you interested in collaborating with other bands or artists? And if you are, who would you choose?
Oh, that's a big question. Yeah, I mean, I'd always be up for considering that. I play in other sort of bands as well, sort of cover bands. So I'm not quite sure how much time I would have to do that. But yeah, I mean, it'd be fantastic to sort of collaborate with some other musicians. As for who, wow, I mean, I can't really say.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a tough one that.
All right. Well, keep an eye on the time here. I think we're okay. Let's start out with talking about some songs on the album. How about the Silence? There's another band, Arena. Yeah. Um, do you guys both like Arena? Because that song sounds a lot like Arena, or I thought. But go ahead.
It's not
Arena's
a,
from the UK.
like I say, it's not a band I've sort of listened to really. I've heard of them, but I've never sort of listened to any tracks. But having heard what you've just said, I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, check them
You'll
out.
like it.
You like Arena?
Yeah, I do like
Yeah.
Arena.
Yeah.
Great band.
That's the names are just flying away from me here. From Pendragon.
Clive Nolan.
Clive, thank you. I couldn't remember his name. But yeah, he's famous throughout England with many different bands. Uh, but yeah, this sounded very Arena like, and not that you copied them or anything like that, but I'm definitely an Arena fan. I love what they've done, and so that you want to talk about that song, "The Silence"?
Yeah, I can do. It was one of the first ones that I wrote for the. Well, I didn't even have a project in mind at the time. I was just writing just to sort of pass the time during the lockdown. But that was one of the first ones that sort of came out. Um, and yeah, that sort of created the spark to write the others. And then when I sent it to Charlie and he put the lyrics on, I just thought, wow, I know this is going to work, you know.
Is I looked at it and maybe I did incorrectly, but it sounded like you're sitting there watching the end of the world. Is that the idea behind it? And I thought, my God, what a horrible place to be. But what are you going to do? You can't change that or choose that. But
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's the idea that we'll all complacently head toward the end of the world. I don't know how it's going to come. It is going to come. I don't know if it's going to be man annihilating man, or if the planet's going to wreak havoc upon the human race, or aliens are going to invade, or what. But one day it's just going to happen, and there'll be absolutely nothing to say. That's the silence at the end of the world.
yeah, there's I'm just thinking about a bunch of different songs where I'm trying to remember the one where it's called Last Sunset. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, and if I can remember who it was. I think it was Midger, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Midger and Ultravox. But there's a song, I think it's called Last Sunset, where he basically the video shows him, driving into the last sunset, and you get that feeling with this song too, that this is it. And it's I shouldn't laugh, but no, it's you really created the feeling, and did a great job.
It was the music that led me to that place with the lyrics. I don't know why. It just
Yeah,
it felt like the calm before the storm, and then the rain of fire.
yeah,
A
yeah.
really interesting atmosphere, so I just ran with it. Love the music.
And the lyrics, yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the lyrics? The lyrics are just riveting.
In the silence.
Yeah. If your
Yeah,
eyes and ears and minds were open, complacency will set you free. It'll only take a moment. This is no time for emotion. So much left unsaid, so much left undone, and the questions still remain. did we get what we deserved? I mean, it's to the point.
It's quite brutalist, isn't it?
No, but yeah,
But it is exactly that idea. You know, we're all going to be head down on our mobile phones, and then suddenly the end of the world will be upon us. All that complacency, all that consumerism that we partake in as a species. What's it all for?
yeah, and all of a sudden, boom, it's over.
Wiped
Yeah,
out in a second. Yeah.
we were walking, like I say, on this beach, and in the distance, there's a volcano. And I don't know if you guys remember Mount St. Helens, but most likely on that day, and there were, there were a lot of people hiking in the area and enjoying a beautiful day. And, you're looking at that thing and it's beautiful. And then within seconds, it's this monster that's destroying everything, completely wiped out the forest. And that, you know, that I don't know, dream, whatever you want to call it, but that image was like, oh my goodness, what if it happened today? And you don't know. That's the most baffling thing, I guess, about the whole thing is we don't know when that's going to happen. It could be a beautiful day like today, or could be one of those sad, winter days when, anyway, do you
I think
guys
we're
want
just
to
about to be cut off.
I know. Yeah, that's why I was going to say, do you want to add anything more to this? And then we'll come back. We'll do a few more songs and see how long you guys want to hang in there.
Yeah, we'll come back to you. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Anything else you want to add to the silence? Or is it just silence? No, I'm kidding.